women really struggle in the third world, partly due to the patriarchal cultures that they live in, which don't allow them to have just even basic human rights. One of the things I kept noticing was that women were doing most of the work. So I began to ask people, am I seeing this right? Because it looks to me like they're doing a lot of the work. And they would say, yeah, you're right, they do. They do all the hard labor. And I said, why do you think it's like that? And they would say, I don't know, but it's not going to change anytime soon. It was just reaffirmed all over the developing world. The poorer the area was, the worse it was for the women. Women are not allowed to be educated like men are. They're at much higher risk for their health, especially during birth. They're at risk culturally because of their own lack of human rights. So these kind of things make it very difficult for women to be able to ever get ahead or even believe in themselves. As a matter of fact, a lot of women are just very, very hopeless, and they have no sense of value and no sense of dignity. Impoverished women are maybe the most despised people of the human race, but they have value too. SowHope exists to inspire women by promoting wellness, education, and economic opportunities. All of these things work to help inspire women to understand their value, to understand their worth and their potential.
Thank you.
At SowHope, we've determined over the last 12 years that what women need most in the wellness program is maternal health care. Women need help giving birth so they don't die. Our education projects, these women are illiterate. They need literacy classes. And we provide vocational training for them. In our economic opportunities, it's all microfinance. We have a strategy that we believe that local leaders use local solutions to solve local problems. And we rely on these leaders and the women to tell us what they need and how they're going to improve their lives. And then we trust them to do it. Thank you. Thank you for your good words.
Good.
I started SowHope because I really wanted the women to know that someone cared about them. But what resulted has been so much more than I ever anticipated. Changing their lives, their children's lives, their whole community's lives, their husbands, respecting them more, them being able to be a part of their communities in a more active and effective way. If you really want to help the poor, you should help women. It's the most effective, efficient way to change the situation of poverty in the world.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Alan Salmon. I am one of SowHope's long-term sponsors, and I will be your MC for this evening. I want to welcome you all to our first and hopefully only ever all-virtual fundraising gala. Thank you for joining us. Normally, we hold this event in an event hall with wine, dinner, music, inspiring messages, and generous donations. Clearly, we cannot have an in-person event this year, but we are still expecting inspiring messages and hoping for your generous donations. Hopefully you are enjoying or have enjoyed a good dinner of your own, and we're sorry we couldn't share that with you tonight. There are hundreds of people watching along on a live stream via YouTube, Facebook, and Vimeo. There are also a number of hosted parties being broadcast on Zoom. We have a number of rooms full of friends and loved ones, and we're excited to be able to add so many more people to the event because the distance barriers have been completely removed. Finally, one good thing about COVID. Thank you to all of our hosts for organizing those events. Every year, this event is made possible and successful by our sponsors, and we would like to thank this year's sponsors. Our corporate sponsors. At Peacemaker level, we have Sonlight Inc. Our change agent sponsor is Montage Inc. Our influencer sponsor is Dentmeister. And the rest of our corporate sponsors are currently displaying on your screen. We also have a number of individual sponsors at gold, green, and purple levels. They are now displaying on your screens as well. In a moment, I will introduce the Secretary of the SowHope Board, Ndeye Ndao. Ndeye will give you a short history of the organization. Then she will introduce Mary Dailey Brown, the President of SowHope, who will, as usual, give the evening's keynote speech. After Mary speaks, another board member, Fridah Kanini, will close out the evening. Please give them your careful attention and then be as generous as you can to the women that SowHope helps. Again, welcome, and thank you all for coming.
Good evening. My name is Ndao. Originally, I am from Senegal, West Africa, and I serve as the Secretary of the Board of Directors of SowHope. On behalf of the board, I want to welcome you to our virtual event this evening. We are honored and grateful that you have chosen to spend your time with us tonight, learning more about the ways that SowHope is inspiring women around the world. And I hope for many of you, affirming or reaffirming your commitment to supporting this incredible organization. And speaking of support, I want to thank our Peacemaker sponsor, Sunlight Inc., for their generous support as sponsors of tonight's event. And thank you to all of our sponsors this evening who truly make this event possible. The theme of tonight's dinner is Rise Up. Because what SowHope does helps impoverished women rise up from difficult situations to a better life. And it helps donors like you rise up to provide life-changing and life-saving opportunities to women who desperately need someone to come alongside them. I joined the SowHope board because I believe in its mission and strategy. Growing up in Dakar, Senegal, I witnessed extreme poverty and how women, for the most part, suffer the most. My mother, Maimuna, from a very young age, has shown and taught me the value of helping and empowering women, and the ripple effect it has not only within a family, but within the neighborhood and society at large. She would always help our neighbors and her friends in need, and sow hope in their lives. Consequently, those women were able to rise above many challenges they were faced with. Being part of SowHope gives me the satisfaction that we are empowering women and helping them rise up. I want to quickly share the history, the mission, and the strategy of SowHope that first captured my heart. SowHope was founded in 2006 by Mary and Doug Brown and many friends to sow hope into the lives of despairing women around the world who live on less than $2 a day. So many of us, maybe everyone watching tonight, can often take hope for granted. But the women we serve around the globe do not have that luxury. Hope is rare, fleeting, and sometimes hard to find. But at SowHope, we believe that hope can be restored. It can be sowed back into the lives of those who have lived so long without it. And that is what we aim to do, to sow hope into the lives of impoverished women. Or more precisely, our mission at SowHope is to inspire women around the world by promoting wellness, education, and economic opportunities. And we can only achieve that mission together. If one person sows hope into the life of one woman, that woman's life can be changed. And if her life is changed, her children's lives can be changed. And if her children's lives are changed, her grandchildren's lives will also be changed. So imagine everyone sowing hope into the life of one woman, or 3, or 10. Imagine helping women who have little hope to rise up from that despair into self-sustaining lives filled with dignity and prosperity. Helping women rise up changes their lives, their families, their communities, and eventually whole nations for the better. Think with me for a moment about SowHope's unique strategy. Partnering with local leaders who solve local problems using local solutions. We partner with local leaders who have identified a local problem. They rise up to begin to effect change with a corresponding local solution. Because that local ownership is the only way to make sustainable, lasting change. And in our 14-year history, we're already seeing how people who rise up to make a change can drastically affect many lives and how hope inspires more hope. At SowHope, we witness many of the world's great sadness and injustices, so we have made celebration one of our values. This year, we are celebrating a wonderful milestone. From 2006 through 2019, SowHope has partnered with local leaders in 22 countries to fund 230 projects that impacted 95,051 women. So far in 2020, we have funded another 44 projects that are estimated to impact an additional 4,991 women. That pushes the number of women that SowHope has helped past 100,000 to 100,042. That's over 100,000 women. Add to that number all their children, their husbands, and some of their neighbors, and that number is actually quite a bit bigger. Please join in with celebrating this amazing achievement. I hope tonight that you will be moved by what you hear and that you will take action and rise up to help make a change in some of the women's lives SowHope tries to inspire through our wellness, education, and economic projects. Rise up and change things for the better. Now, please welcome the president of SowHope, Mary Dailey Brown.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Ndeye, for that introduction to SowHope. Tonight, you're going to hear some information that you may never have heard before about the world and how you can rise up to make things better. I'd like to take a minute and tell you who I am and why SowHope was started. I grew up on a small dairy farm in Illinois with 3 brothers and an older sister. I majored in photography in college and then worked as a presidential photographer at the White House. I married my husband and we went to live in Spain for nearly 4 years. Our first son was born there. I remember the day I brought Alex home from the hospital. I was holding him in my arms. Now, I need to give you a little context for this story. Growing up with 3 brothers who played with the only other 3 boys around, I saw my fair share of roughhousing and all-out fighting. I could never understand how those boys could get so mad, usually after they lost some game, that they would actually hit each other. And then they would hurt each other. I once witnessed a fight where 2 boys actually punched each other in the face. Now, I could get mad and yell and cry, but I could never intentionally hurt someone. Well, here I was holding this beautiful little baby boy, the embodiment of purity. I was looking into his sweet little face, and I was singing a simple little song to him. And when I finished the song, I said, "I love you." And then I had the thought of someone hurting this beautiful, innocent, precious child. And I can't hardly believe what happened to me next. Something began to rise up in me. I could feel myself stand up straighter, and this very strong emotion, really a fierceness that I had never experienced, came over me completely. Then I said, and I meant it with all my heart, if anyone ever hurts you, I will kill them. I knew at that moment that I was forever changed, that I was capable of something that I thought was impossible. I definitely knew what it meant to rise up. 6 weeks after Alex was born, we returned to the U.S. After a couple of years, I started a photography business. Doug and I also volunteered at our church in Illinois to take teams to Mexico every summer to build houses for impoverished families. Eventually, 22 years ago, we adopted our second son, John. We moved to Michigan, where I got a job as a missions director at a church, which included traveling around the developing world. In country after country, I began to see a very disturbing pattern. Women were being treated so badly. They appeared to be doing most of the physical work and all the hard labor. I kept seeing women carrying heavy burdens like wood, water, food, along with babies wrapped on their backs. There were never women in any of the meetings we had with church or village leaders. Women worked hard to make the food, but they were never at the table when we sat down to eat. I began asking women about their lives, and I was hearing stories from them about domestic abuse and abandonment. It became clear to me that impoverished women were really suffering, and mostly silently. It turned out, compared to men, that women were severely underpaid, overworked, underfed, undereducated, and more at risk for their health because of maternal mortality, AIDS, and trauma from violence that they had endured. Women also suffered from a lack of basic human rights. Widows do not inherit their husband's estate. They become part of it. Less than 2% of all land in the world is owned by women. Physically abused, driven to desperation by neglect, denied banking, with no say in any matter. Women had no choice, no voice. I began to realize that impoverished women, arguably, could be the largest, most oppressed group in the world. I was shocked that no one seemed to notice that this all seemed so normal and acceptable. I asked my good friend, a nurse from Switzerland who had lived in Africa for over 30 years, if I was right when I said, "It looks to me like the women are doing all the work." She thought about it for a minute and said, "Yeah, I guess you're right." I asked her, "Why is it like that?" She said, "Oh, I don't know why it's like that, but that's the way it is, and that's the way it's always been, and I don't think it's going to change anytime soon." Hoping to help that change begin sooner rather than later, I began to share the plight of women in the developing world with my husband and friends. Together, we started SowHope to try to reverse the injustices happening to very poor women on a broad scale around the world. That is why we started SowHope. We started it to help impoverished women around the world rise up to make a difference in their lives, the lives of their children, and their communities. Since we started SowHope almost 14 years ago, women have started to rise up from poverty to prosperity, rise up from degradation to dignity, rise up from sickness to wellness, rise up from illiteracy to education, rise up from oppression to freedom, rise up from humiliation to honor, rise up from violent abuse to respect, rise up from the dust to fulfill their potential, because there is hope. And we hope tonight that you too will rise up to make a difference for suffering women around the world. Our target group is the 1.5 billion women who live on less than $3 a day. And the problem I just described is still going on today. As Ndeye said, we have been funding projects since 2006. We have 3 program areas, which are wellness, education, and economic. Our strategy is to find local leaders living in the developing world who are already helping women. We ask the leaders what their dreams are, and then we fund projects to help them achieve their dreams of empowering women in sustainable ways. We fund things like birthing centers because many women die in childbirth. They are alone with no medical help. 98% of the people in the developing world will never see a doctor in their lifetime. We fund a lot of literacy classes because women are 2 times more likely than men to be illiterate. We fund many microfinance projects like microloans, table banking, and small business training. These projects are wildly successful because the original ideas, the labor, and the results belong to the local leaders. These are local leaders solving local problems, using local solutions, and paying local prices. We always have an eye for sustainable projects, those projects that can keep going after our funding stops. We prefer to fund sustainable development over relief projects. But sometimes, like this year, with the global pandemic and the devastating lockdowns, the poor of the world have once again been disproportionately affected. The infrastructure is weak in the developing world, and it is easily disrupted. Supply chains quickly break, and this can mean the difference between life and death. It's not toilet paper or opening a gym that they're worried about. The challenges of COVID are different for a developing area than they are here in the U.S. The changes are not as much a result of people infected by COVID, but by the result of official responses to COVID. Exaggerated travel restrictions, lockdowns, and the lack of market movement, including shortages of essentials like food and water. It is anticipated that because of COVID-19, the number of people who will die from hunger will double this year. According to Oxfam, 121 million people will be pushed to the brink of starvation, and an average of 12,000 people a day will die from hunger. Many more will die from the lockdown and travel restrictions, which are prohibiting food production, transportation, and sales, than from the virus itself. This year, we decided to provide a unique response by providing 1 or 2 times stimulus funds to our partners so they could assist past beneficiaries who are finding themselves in very dire situations. Tonight, I would like to share 3 specific stories with you. One from India about a group we assisted as a result of COVID. The second is the matching of a donor gift with a need in Nepal, a great combination. And third, the continuation of the fistula response in Burkina Faso that we talked about from last year. In each of these examples, we witness how women rise up to a greater life because you, the SowHope donors, also decided to rise up and provide resources to meet those needs. In the story from India, women rise up from poverty to prosperity. SowHope funded a sewing project, they call it tailoring, 2 years ago in India, and 80 women in 2 different cities learned to sew and were able to purchase subsidized sewing machines. They began to make money with their newfound skills and were contributing significantly to their family income. Then COVID hit, and India put into effect extremely strict lockdown rules. Food became scarce, and things were looking grim. We invited our partner there, Kamala, to apply for stimulus funds. Kamala is a tremendous partner who has helped many women rise up from a desperate situation. She created and ran an incredibly amazing literacy program for years in India, helping thousands of women rise up from illiteracy to academic proficiency. I'd like you to hear from her about how she used the stimulus funds for the tailoring students and what SowHope means to her.
Hello, greetings to you from India. During this pandemic time, we are in fear and a grip of corona positive cases, many positive cases and deaths. We are almost living with it, and it has become a new normal life. But the life of women in India is miserable then and also now. In India, we have started a tailoring course from SowHope, and which has started a new life for many people. The women who were domestic servants, helpers, agricultural laborers, who have no future, no regular income, and they do not have self-reliance and also self-respect. The tailoring center has started this, and they have learned the skill of stitching clothes. So during this course, people have gained the confidence and are trying to get the income for themselves. One case history I want to bring to your notice that one young girl of 22 years old named Monica. Her parents are agricultural laborers. They used to get daily labor job, which is just sufficient for their family needs. Monica, when she is going to the college, studying undergraduation. She also went to the agricultural labor job and got her daily labor job like 200 rupees per day, which is not regular. And with that money, she has paid her fee for her examination and her study. She has joined in the tailoring course and she has completed. Now she has joined in stitching masks, which the local organization has started, and she's getting 5,000 rupees per month, which is a first of her life in getting a monthly salary. When I asked her, she says, no, this is the dignity of my life. And her hope is she wants to become fashion designer, and which is a great ambition, and she may get that. This training course has given the employment and also hope for many such women in the areas where we have conducted tailoring program. And the COVID has brought a miserable situation. There are no jobs. People are not allowed to go out. Therefore, there is no work, there is no income, and there is no food. SowHope graciously has helped the people and who have received the groceries, and where they received with tears, they said, you people have, like mothers feeding their children, you have given us this, the livelihood for us. And which has given them a real, they are broke down. And when we have handed over them, they felt so happy. And now we have started one masks production where 8 ladies are employed and they are getting regular income. This is really a hope for many of those women, and giving ambition, and for which I am really thankful to the donors to SowHope and all the leaders. And may God bless your help, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Kamala, for your illustration of how you use SowHope funding to help women rise up from poverty to prosperity and to continue your dream of giving women opportunities for a better life. Next is an amazing story of a small businessman in Nepal and a couple from the U.S. The couple was moved by a need they saw, and they saw a potential opportunity. They decided to rise up and do something about both. When COVID hit, this couple contacted us at SowHope saying they had some extra money they would like to donate to someone in the developing world to start a mask-making business. They thought this would be a win-win situation where a person in the developing world could make some income while also providing a valuable health-protecting product from the pandemic for their community. Just a few months earlier, Kathy Metter, a SowHope board member, and I had gone to Nepal to visit a new partner, Joyti, who had applied for a wellness project. When we were there, getting to know Joyti and her husband, they took us around to several small business people they knew. One of them was a very compassionate man, Anand, who had hired a few women to make masks. Because of pollution, many people wear masks all the time in the big cities of the world. It's a very big problem there. Anand told me that he would like to hire more women, and he pays them a very good wage, but that he really needed capital to go from his little retail business so he could expand into a wholesale business. We sent the money to our partner, Joyti, who passed it on to Anand, the man with the mask-making business. Even though COVID was causing a lot of concern and grief for everyone here in the U.S., those donors, moved by the despair they saw happening to people in the developing world, realized they could rise up to make a difference. Through their donation, since April, Anand has trained 17 women who have made over 45,000 masks. 10 of those women started their own businesses and have trained 4 more women. Some of the women have even moved to other towns to have more opportunity to sell. One lady, Harimani, who was very poor because her alcoholic husband, who had fallen from the roof, became paralyzed and not only could no longer work, but needed to be cared for full-time. Additionally, his mentally ill brother lives with them. Harimani really had her hands full, taking care of them and trying to do day labor to make enough for everyone to survive. She was chosen by Anand to be one of the ladies that got trained in mask making. She is very skilled and has been able to make enough money to support herself and her family. Now she is very happy because she can work right from home. The one good thing about COVID is the money people can make from mask making. This is another excellent example of how our partners help women rise up from poverty to prosperity, rise up from impossible situations like Harimani's to independence, rise up from despair to hope. What does it take for people like our donors to rise up for change? It takes awareness of a problem. It takes great empathy for those who are suffering. And it takes a personal, sacrificial action. It takes love to rise up, not unlike the love of a young mother for her newborn. In the third story tonight, I want to revisit something I mentioned last year when I shared about the problem some women face in the developing world called fistula. We partnered with a doctor in Burkina Faso who specializes in fistula repair. This is a country in West Africa. Dr. Itengre works with women who are cast out of their communities due to fistula. He has made a short video to explain fistula and what he does about it.
With this process of obstructed labor, this lady will be suffering for some day, 2-3 days. She is there with pain. She is suffering. She delivered finally. Her baby is dead. Her bladder is broken completely and she is leaking urine all the time. And then when she goes back home, her husband will just abandon her. She will go back to her parent and possibly they will abandon her. You have been somebody today, but tomorrow you are nobody. Yeah, you were a mother, you were a wife, but tomorrow nobody knows you.
Hello, my name is Itengre Ouedraogo. I'm the founder and president of Arena in Burkina Faso, an organization working in the implementation of a holistic care for fistula patients in Burkina Faso. Obstetric fistula is a preventable and in most cases a treatable childbirth injury that leaves women incontinent, ashamed, and often isolated from their communities. It happens when the woman suffers a prolonged obstructed labor without timely access to an emergency cesarean section. It is estimated that around 2 to 3.5 million women live with fistula in the developing world, and around 50,000 to 100,000 new cases develop each year. Obviously, inequity in healthcare access is an underlying cause. Fistula tend to affect the most marginalized member of the society, like young and illiterate women living in remote areas. During unassisted prolonged obstructed labor, the constant pressure of the baby's head against the mother's pelvic bone will damage the soft tissue that leave a hole between the vagina and the rectum or the bladder, which will cause the woman to leak constantly urine or feces through the vagina. But it is important to note that fistula can affect every woman regardless of her age. When there is an obstructed labor, without timely access to an emergency cesarean section. The impact of fistula in the woman's life is very important. The constant leaking of urine and feces through the vagina is only the physical manifestation, but these women almost leave everything, including their identity. In around 90% of cases, the baby dies. It is estimated that around 40% of them have symptoms of depression and a small percentage have suicidal thoughts. Economically, they live a life of exclusion that prevents them from developing income-generating activities. The majority of women exclude themselves due to the fear of judgment and discrimination by no longer attending at social activities. So that will lead them to an economical impact in their life and social exclusion. Most fistula patients are divorced or separated from the husband. The fact that the women are no longer able to meet the society's expectation, coupled with the lack of awareness of the disease, contribute to exacerbate the tension within the families. Fortunately, surgery has a life-changing effect for these women. A reconstructive surgery done by a trained and expert surgeon can repair the injury with success rate as high as 90% for less complex cases. Surgery contributes to the physical healing that will lead to social reconciliation with resolution of symptoms of depression and in most cases possibility of resuming social activities. These women are therefore able to rise up from the status of outcast to a satisfying life. Here at Arena, we have seen too many stories, like this woman, Adama, who used to do small commerce as an income-generating activity until she developed her fistula. She started labor at home and finally delivered at a health center, but it was too late. She lost her baby. She developed a rectovaginal fistula. She was told by the doctor that due to the injuries, she will no longer be able to get more pregnancy. She endured the same of leaking constantly feces, and she endured isolation. Despite of being with her husband, she noted a big difference in their relationship with the tendency from the husband for not taking care of her. In 2018, she heard about Arena and she visited us. She got her fistula fortunately repaired and she went back home. When she came back 6 months later for a follow-up, she came back with the husband. They were already reconciliated. And in 2020, when she came back for a visit again, it was this time for the follow-up for her pregnancy. So this is an example of a woman who has been able to rise up from the economic ruin and the shame of isolation to being a functioning part of her family and her community. So we want to take this opportunity to say thanks to SowHope for partnering with us to really help these women living with this debilitating condition that leave them suffering in solitude and isolation. Thank you.
Dr. Itengre helps women who are on the brink of devastation and separation from family and friends, and helps them to rise up and become a part of their communities again, to rise up from depression to joy, rise up from feelings of rejection and uselessness to having dignity and purpose. Our partners are involved in helping women rise up on so many levels, but they cannot do it without your help. Your donations help fund the projects of their dreams, like starting a fistula repair clinic or vocational training program for women, so they can earn money to feed their families. COVID-19 has been a terrible reality for everyone, but for those in the developing world, the lockdowns have caused profound and long-lasting negative impacts on the livelihood of impoverished people. The challenges brought on this year by the pandemic that women in particular face are almost insurmountable. Trying to find food for your family when there are logistical restraints in maintaining the supply chains from the farming to the urban areas is really problematic. Now, more than ever, it is important for those who can to rise up in this situation, to be a part of the solution. In a few minutes, we are going to play a short song, and then Fridah will come and share how you can give to this cause. Will you rise up to give someone who feels worthless dignity? Will you rise up to provide wellness for a woman with fistula? Will you rise up to fund literacy and education so impoverished women can be self-sufficient? Will you rise up to donate initial capital funding for small businesses like the Mask Making Project? Will you rise up to offer hope to the hopeless? Will you rise up to contribute to the cause of inspiring hopeless women around the world? If you rise up, those women can rise up. You will be a part of changing them, their children, and their communities, now and for generations to come. So rise up. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. God bless you, and good night.
You're broken down and tired of living life on the merry-go-round, and you can't find a fighter, but I see it in you, so we gon' walk it out. Move mountains, we gon' walk it out and move mountains. And I'll rise like the day. I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I do it 1,000 times again. The silence isn't quiet, and it feels like it's getting hard to breathe. And I know you feel like dying, but I promise we'll take the world to its feet. Move mountains, bring it to its feet. Move mountains. And I'll rise like the day. I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I do it 1,000 times again. For that we have each other, and we will rise, we'll rise up,
Hello, everyone. What an amazing song that was, and a touching speech by Mary. As always, her speech gives me goosebumps. It shows indeed we can rise up. My name is Fridah Kanini, one of the SowHope board members, and I'm so honored to stand in front of you tonight to share a little bit about myself and my connection to this amazing organization. For those who may not know me, I'm originally from Kenya, where I grew up with three of my brothers. Just like the African proverb goes, it takes a village to raise a child. I was raised by a single mother, my grandmother, and my uncle and my grandfather as my father figures. Given my background and some of my childhood experiences, I can relate in so many ways to the women we are privileged to serve here at SowHope. A little bit about my mom. She was not just one of the strongest and most resilient women. She was also a great mother, a huge advocate for women, and I believe that's why God chose her as a social worker, where she served women, girls, and people with special needs. She was also the head of the women's program called Maendeleo ya Wanawake in my town, which means women in development in Swahili. Besides her love for the community, she had to take care of us financially, look after our farm, and provide for our parents, who all lived with us at some point. Unlike today when single motherhood is applauded, back in my country in the 80s and 90s, single mothers were looked down on. And actually, I can remember how sad it felt to be made fun of, bullied, and called names because my mom was a single mom. Kids would say demeaning things about my mom to us. Needless to say, she rose up above all these challenges and continued to love and serve our community and to do everything she could to provide for us. Besides my not so easy childhood, there were good times too. And one of the most beautiful things I still remember is how my grandmother was empowering to my mom. He would always tell her how she was not just a daughter to him, but he thought of her as a son. I can say this is one of the reasons my mom got courage and empowerment to keep going in a community sometimes that valued men more than women. While watching my mom do all this, I realized the power of serving others, being supportive, and most importantly, being resilient and rising above the crazy things that life can throw at us. One good example is having to take on everything after my mom passed and facing all kinds of challenges, being away from my family. But through it all, I knew I had to rise up. Now let us talk about why I love serving on the board of SowHope. I could go on and on all night on why I love SowHope, but one of the most special connections that makes SowHope very dear and personal to my heart is because it reminds me so much of the work my mom did in our community. In fact, the night I learned about SowHope, I was Ndeye's guest at one of the SowHope fundraising dinner, and sadly, my mom had just passed away a little before that time. And I remember watching the videos of the SowHope women thinking, I wish my mom was still alive. She would have been such a great SowHope partner. Of course, no doubt, being a part of SowHope, I am continuing the great legacy of a woman I love so much. The second reason why I love SowHope is because unlike many groups that just hand out money to underprivileged people, SowHope programs do not only support, but empowers these women to become independent, to restore their dignity and freedom. Last but not least, the other special reason why I love SowHope so much is the work Mary does in the countries that she travels to. Her work is very inspiring. When I saw videos of the women, I was absolutely touched to see the love she has for them. So now you can see why I love SowHope so much. Having said all that, I would like to take this opportunity to ask our guests to kindly join me in supporting this amazing mission so we can help more and more women rise up. As you think about giving today, please think about the opportunity you have in front of you to impact and make a difference to an entire community. Because by just giving to 1 or 3 or 10, you are giving to families and a community at large. Our goal tonight is to raise $60,000, which will help 2,000 women. Please remember you can choose to do this by giving one-time gift or becoming a monthly donor, which we really appreciate if you can do that. You can give online or by mailing a check or texting. All the instructions are on your screen. Thank you again so much for joining us tonight and for your generosity. And most importantly, for empowering women around the world. God bless you, and I hope we can do this in person next year.
Thank you to Ndeye, Mary, and Fridah for those inspiring messages, and thanks to all of you for your generous donations this evening. There are ways other than donating that you can help SowHope. You can stay informed if you go to the website and sign up for our newsletter. You can volunteer, and applications are on the website at SowHope.org. You can spread the word about SowHope among your friends and on social media. Finally, thank you again to Sonlight Inc. and to all of the other sponsors for making this evening possible and successful. Thank you to all of our Zoom meeting hosts and our volunteers. On Thursday, October 15th, SowHope will be hosting a Basic and Advanced Giving Strategies webinar. The facilitator of this event, Alfred Longton, is a SowHope board member and the founder and CEO of Longton Family Companies. He has 30 years of experience in the world of finance, and he will be discussing why 2020 is the best year to give charitably. Thank you all again for coming and for your generous donations. Don't forget, rise up.